Good morning. Thanks for joining me today for our session on how to write a business plan. My name is Kristy. I'm a presenter and an advisor for Business Station as part of the Digital Solutions Program, which is a Commonwealth Government funded program. We are going to run through a number of things today relating to writing a business plan and what it could potentially be used for. I would encourage you to stop me at any time if you've got any questions. Use the chat or the Q&A functionality. If you'd like to reach out, but keep in mind, I'll stay on towards the end to answer any questions that you may have as well. I personally have written a number of business plans for various businesses, wencluding my own in the past. So my experience sort of comes from that and the uses that I've had for business plans as well. So what we're actually going to cover today, in addition to sharing some of those personal experiences, is first of all, what a business plan is and why you might need one. Some tips before you actually start the process of writing a business plan. We'll look at the key components of a business plan, and some of those key components are a bit more in depth than others, so we will go through them in more detail. And then we'll look at pulling it all together. I'll talk you through a template and you can get an idea of how a business plan might flow with the various components that we've discussed. So first of all, what is a business plan? Well, a business plan describes your product or service, essentially. It identifies who your customers are or who they will be if it's a new business or a startup. It explains why they're going to need your product or service, and it actually shows and backs up or proves that you're going to make money from that opportunity. The reasons that you might write a business plan and how you might write it will depend on what you need it to do, but there are a couple of key jobs that a business plan can have. It can just purely explain a business idea, or it could convince lenders or even investors to put money behind that particular business idea. So depending on what the purpose of the business plan is, you don't have to write a massive document. In all instances, you can write a business plan that's short, that's to the point, that's easy to update, and that might be all you ever need. But if you are going for funding, and that could be through a lender or an investor, your business plan is going to need to be a really good deal longer and a lot more comprehensive than if you were just using it for your own internal purposes. Business plans also help you to run your business. So a good business plan will really guide you through each stage of starting and managing your business. You'll use that business plan as a bit of a roadmap for how to structure, how to run, and how potentially to even grow your new business. And it's a way to think through some of those key elements, things that you might and really need to consider if you're starting a business up. It can also help you get that funding, like I said, or bring on new business partners. Investors generally want to feel confident that they're going to see a return on investment, and your business plan is going to be the tool that you'll use to convince people that working with you or investing in your company is that smart choice. Okay, before you start, sorry, just waiting for that slide to go. But before you start, if it is a business startup, you may want to consider a few key questions to really help determine if you're ready to start writing your business plan. First of all, have you thoroughly refined your business idea so that you personally have a good understanding of how your business is going to operate? The next is whether or not you've researched your business concept to determine if there's actually a need for it in the marketplace. And have you completed a feasibility study to determine the expected level of success of your business? Also, you need to consider if you've got the money required to start and grow the business. Now, this could be for the purpose of obtaining funding, but there will be some input that you'll need to have in on the funding side of things. And the last point that I would sort of consider before you start is whether or not you're prepared to invest significant time into the business to get it up and running, because it will take time. Even the business planning alone is going to take a significant amount of time. Now, if you have an existing business, you may have already determined some of those things, but if you've never had a business plan, you're going to have to look at that again. Some people will have a business plan that they sort of develop when they start a business, and then a lot of time goes by and things change. So, they may not have updated it, or, it could be completely irrelevant. So you'll need to reconsider those points if anything has changed. Now, if you're ready to get started on your business plan, you do have to keep in mind that it will take time and it will take dedication as well. It's not something that you're going to be able to complete just in one sitting and sit down and sort of write it out, or in a short period of time. You should allocate a significant amount of time to do this. Time where you're not going to be distracted or disturbed is always going to be good as well. From my perspective, I think it's best to be able to go away from the business plan, do a little bit of research, come back to it, go away, come back, and just space it out. So you've given that time, or given yourself that time and the ability to really think through the business plan, the business, some of the concepts, perhaps some of the discoveries as you do research. Now, what the business plan should include is really up to you as an individual. There's no set rule about what your plan has to cover or the level of detail, but in general, plans need to cover a certain amount of information to be valuable documents. Now, I've bullet pointed on the screen some of those things. First of all, starting with an executive summary. Now, executive summaries are written at the end of the process. It's generally a short summary of the main points of the business plan. And you write this and I think about this as a 1 or 2 page component of the business plan, that if somebody didn't want to read every single page and every single detail, this would summarize the entire plan. So that's why you tend to write those last. Your business profile or your company overview is really important. This is where you'll identify your industry, identify what it is that you're selling and how you're going to charge for that. Your vision, your mission, and your goals are really important. We will expand on that in just a second, because that tends to be a bit of a grey area. People tend to get a bit stuck on those components. Your market analysis is really important. Here you'll describe your target market, as well as looking at the competition, and examining what, in terms of what you know internally about the market or your past customers if you're an existing business, but research on the market behaviours, anything you can really determine about who your target market is and really define who your target market is. Your products and services, that's a key area. This will be really a description of what it is that you're offering and what problem that you're actually solving for customers as well. Your marketing plan and your sales plan is going to outline how you're going to find customers and how you're going to make sales, how many sales there'll be. So you'll have some estimations on that side of thing, and marketing will be in line with that. Risk assessment, this is obviously crucial for all business, but this is where you can flag any potential hurdles. Now, those hurdles can be anything. So you think about your typical risk, which is your physical and your sort of environmental risk, but you obviously have to extend that into business risk as well. And this should include assumptions that you may have made perhaps in your marketing and your sales sort of planning, that could potentially be proved wrong. So keep that in mind. Milestones are really important in a business plan, and this is what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. And then your progress reporting ties into that. So that's when and how you're going to report against those milestones. Your team and the operations are really important. Now, who's going to be involved in the business or who is already involved in the business. Here, you'll discuss things like their skills and their responsibilities. CVs may be attached to a business plan, and it's very common, particularly in a smaller business where you've got an owner-operator or you've got key personnel within that business. A good CV is very relevant in that scenario. Your budgets are crucial, and the finance side of things. In your budgets, you're going to estimate your costs, you're going to estimate your income. Obviously, you have to factor in any debt that you plan to take on. And then your general finance, you might consider how you're going to fund the business and at what point cash, it will be cash flow positive or cash will start to flow that you can use back in the business. So some of those areas of business planning are really straightforward. Others can be a bit more complex. We are going to go into a bit more detail on a few areas now. So we're going to talk about your vision and mission statement. We'll talk about conducting market research and analysis, Now, this is a really key element, and reason being is that your market research really sets the scene in terms of why you exist and who you're going to serve. So some people do forget that. They think they've got a good product or service, a good idea. Of course, people will want it, but you really have to identify who those people are and prove that they're going to want it. Then we'll talk about developing your marketing plan, because marketing tends to be another area that lets people down a little bit, and then budgets and finance as well. But starting off with your vision and mission statements. Now, usually people write those statements for a business or for a particular organizational unit or a team. Now, you can also create statements to define the goals of long-term projects or initiatives, but obviously in this case, we're looking at it from a whole business perspective. Now, your mission statements define your organization's purpose and its primary objectives. And they differ from your vision statements, which also define your organization's purpose, but they more focus on goals and aspirations, so a bit more forward focused. So your vision statement are designed to be uplifting and inspiring. They're also timeless. So even if the business or the organization changes its strategy, you will find quite often that the vision will stay the same. Now, a mission statement tend to be set in the present tense. They explain why you exist as a business, both to members of the business, so to your staff, and to the people outside it. So mission statements tend to be short, clear, and very, very powerful. I think what's really important is that your staff, yourself and your staff, are across your mission statements. These statements and your vision statements, I should say, but both are your reason for being. So one is around your purpose and your primary objectives. One is around your purpose and your goals and aspirations. So, and this is something that I've identified as a really big gap. Most businesses, you say, what's your vision statement, what's your mission statement? And they will say, oh yeah, we've got one. Very few actually know what that is. Whereas I feel that this is something that you should be living by. So yourself and your staff should know this intimately. The statements in both cases should be concise, they should be focused, and they should be inspiring. So the recommendation is that you do everything you can to make your statements really succinct. We don't want any long rambling statements because they're just too difficult to decipher. They lead to confusion amongst your customer base, but also yourself and your staff. And like I said, we want these statements to be something that your staff can recite, and so can you at any given time. So I'm going to show you some examples. First of all, and keep in mind that mission statements define your organization's purpose and primary objectives. So Sumo Salad, this is a good example. This is to make Australia a healthier and happier place. Now, it works because it really explains why the business has been founded, and it sort of reveals, its goal of a better future. It talks about the Australian market. And the focus is on well-being and not just pushing a product. So that one works quite well for an Australian business. Google is a much larger organization. So their mission statement is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now that works, I think, because it succinctly explains this huge scope of service that Google has. So words like useful and accessible, convey that inherent value. I think it is successful in simplifying something that is very, very complex. Jetstar is next. Jetstar's mission is to offer low fares to enable more people to fly to more places more often. So it really highlights the key selling point or the value to the customer, which is low fares and more travel to more destinations. So I think that works quite well. Ikea is just simply to create a better everyday life for the many people. Now, this works because the focus is on making everyday life better for customers rather than just selling furniture. The phrase many people makes a huge company seem a little bit more accessible to a broad range of customers. So I think that does work quite well as well. So hopefully those mission statements help you to start to think about, your purpose and your primary objectives. Now, when we've got some examples of vision statements also define your organization's purpose, but they focus on your goals and your aspirations. So here, these ones are all quite simple. Costco, their vision is a place where efficient buying and operating practices give members access to unmatched savings. So they're not talking about convenience and that kind of thing. They're talking about they're efficient in what they're doing, and it's giving you unmatched savings as a result. So that's pretty straightforward. And it will carry through with them forever, essentially. Disney is very simple. Their vision is to make people happy. And I think that works with Disney across any of their products, experiences that they offer. And it is very much a timeless statement and aspirational. Netflix, their vision is helping content creators around the world to find a global audience. Now, I found this really interesting because it's not about the consumer. It's really about the people creating content. So their vision, their organization's purpose and their goals and aspirations are really around content creators and the linkage between a global audience, so being that intermediary between the two. ASX Limited, again, a major organisation, and theirs is very simple to be the world's most respected financial marketplace. So again, it is aspirational, but it does sort of talk to their overall purpose as well. So hopefully those examples do help you. Just in terms of defining your own vision and mission statement. I find it best to do a good brainstorm around those two areas, get other people involved in your business and really refine what it is that you want to say. Next, we're looking at market research and analysis. Now, this is going to be the backbone behind your business plan and behind your business, essentially. Research really is key. You need to know what the market is doing. So in terms of where you can research, there's a number of different ways that you can research. Australian Bureau of Statistics provides some great information. IBIS World is also a database of statistical information and research reports. You may have industry research reports. So a good search of what research sits around the particular industry that you're in can really help. Now, a really good example of this was recently I was working on a business plan with a rug sales company. We had a look at some research around consumer behavior to do with rugs. It really uncovered some interesting data on what sort of materials, ethical practices are important to people. And that really allows you to define where your sales focus might be in the future and what kind of messaging you might pitch to your clients. So that research around consumer behavior, consumer trends, and what the market actually wants is absolutely crucial. No matter how old your business is or how new your business is, that research can be really, really valuable. You can never expect a customer to change their wants and needs to suit your product. So you really have to continually research what the market's doing, who else is doing stuff in the market, and your competitors, your consumer behavior and trends, to know that you're offering the right product or service. In terms of your customers, you need to have a really clear idea of the type of people, or in some cases, businesses that are going to buy your product or service. If you don't already have that clear idea, you have to think very carefully until you do, and then back it up with research. It's one of the first questions any investor is going to ask you about your business plan. So you need to really thoroughly, and for your own peace of mind, you need to be able to answer that question. Now, whether your customers are going to be consumers or businesses, so B2C or B2B, you'll have to have that defined. If they're businesses, you have to think about who you're going to actually target in those companies. Who is the decision maker? Maybe it's the salesperson, it could be the CEO, it could be the executive assistant. So you'll have to really understand that. You'll have to determine whether you're going to have regular clients or if they'll be one-off buyers. I would certainly be making sure that you've spoken to some of your potential customers as well and done some focus groups or product testing, or even product or service testing as well. A competitor analysis is absolutely crucial. That will help you truly understand the competition. Every business has competition, so be really thorough when you do your competitor analysis. List all of your existing and your potential customers. Think about your direct competitors, which are those people that are selling the same products as you, potentially in the same area. Think about indirect competitors, and that will be people whose market overlaps yours. When you think about competitors, think about your product or service, and think about, as a consumer, does a consumer take your product or service and someone else's, even if it differs? So a good example of this is if you've got a customer base, I shouldn't say competitor, but if you've got a customer base that will spend $100 a week on recreational activities, but your recreational activity is completely different to somebody else down the roads, the customer's not going to be able to do both. They're going to choose one or the other. So even though your product and your service can be completely different to that person down the road, you're still competing for that same dollar, if that makes sense. So that's where the market can overlap. So really consider those indirect competitors as well. I would also think about what's going to prevent other companies with competing with you. What are some of those barriers to entry, and list those. I mean, you could have gone through years of approval processes, or trying to get the right licensing in place, or even product development. That's really going to be a barrier to anyone else entering the market. Or from this, so from knowing who your competitors are, what it is that they're offering the market, you should be able to define your unique selling proposition. So what's your point of difference? What makes you stand out from your competitors? Once you know exactly who your competitors are, what they're offering to the market, you'll be able to determine if you can stand out from your competitors, and if so, what it is that makes you stand out. You then have to link that back to what the market wants. So a true unique selling proposition is something that the market wants, that nobody else can offer. So really link those two through your research. Now, that last point around that unique selling proposition, I really can't stress enough how important it is. So really go into depth in your research and how your business is going to differentiate itself from others. So it could be based on price, it could be service, it could be quality, it could be range, it could be the value that you offer. But make sure that you're very clear on that. You really spell it out as part of your business plan, but you're clear on it yourself. A SWOT is important to you. Most people have heard of a SWOT. This is just an analysis of your strengths and weaknesses, which are internal factors, and opportunities and threats, which are external factors that may positively or negatively impact the business. I think when you're doing a SWOT, it's really important to get many people in your organization involved. So really go, if you've got a few staff, if you've got business partners, really get a bit of a collection of heads together to determine what your strengths and weaknesses are, and what opportunities and threats some people have identified. This can be really helpful in terms of annual planning. Competitor analysis, I would always do on an annual basis anyway, as well as your SWOTs, year SWOT. Things change throughout the year. It's really important that you continually identify what's changed, and obviously look at how you can capitalize on your strengths, mitigate weaknesses, take advantage of opportunities, and reduce threats. So that's really turn that SWOT into some form of action. You then plan your business around your strengths. So as you write your business plan, you're keeping in mind your strengths, but also looking out for any areas for improvement. So that will help you to constantly plan or redefine this plan and make the most of your abilities, whilst you're always remaining realistic and understanding the market as a whole. That is more likely to convince investors or funders that you're serious as well. So that construction of a plan that really identifies all areas of your business is absolutely crucial. All right, then we're going to look at target market. Now, I believe the most important component of marketing is to truly know your target market. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. And I think that it's an area that some businesses take for granted in terms of, yeah, I know this is my market, or these are the people that walk through my doors if you've got an existing business. But you need to have a really clear idea of the type of people or businesses that you want to buy your product or service. You need to know whether your customers, like I said earlier, will be consumers, direct, or businesses. If they're businesses, you need to determine who you're going to target within them, and who is the actual decision maker. And you've really got to delve into I guess the segmentation, as it says on your screen now, dividing your customers into groups, into these market segments with common characteristics. There's no room for guessing. You need to identify who these people are that are going to buy from you. So segmentation, you might look at demographics, so things like age, gender, social status. You might look at demographics around a business, so size of a company, the revenue of the company, and the services or the products that they offer, if it's a B2B product or service. The location, perhaps, a specific area or a town or even country based, so geographic location. Professions, you might look at, what sort of professional people or professional services you're sort of targeting. Shared interests or habits, so psychographic information, behavioral information. The better you evaluate your target audience, the more comprehensive your business plan is going to be. So that's obviously identifying your target market, and this is this market segment that's selected by your business for marketing attention. It's not who's always come through your doors. Forget all of that. You're going to, through research, prove who your target market is or who it could be. And through this sort of discovery process, you might find that there are target segments that no one's reaching out to or no one's communicating to, or there could be target markets that are being served by your competitors, but your competitors aren't doing that very well. Or you might find that who you thought would be your target market, they are actually saturated with options, so they're going to be a lot more difficult and more expensive to get to. So keep that in mind. To be a viable market segment, they should be, you should segment people and group them so that they are homogenous, so they should all be alike within that segment. They should differ from the general population and be different to other market segments. So you might have 3 or 4 market segments, which is fine as long as you've clearly defined who they are and each is homogenous. They have to be large enough to support a separate marketing campaign. So you might have a market segment that comes through your doors. They've always come through, but you don't actually have to focus any marketing attention on them because they're going to come anyway. So keep that in mind. And they have to be reachable through some type of media or marketing communications method. And you need to know what that method is. So you need to be very clear in terms of who they are and how they're reached. Once you know that, you know exactly where to place your advertising and therefore can be extremely targeted, as the title, target market, suggests. So keep that in mind. Really segment them across those dimensions that I discussed. And keep in mind that if you don't have a clear image of your target market, as a small business, you try to reach almost everybody. And what happens is that you end up appealing to almost no one because you're in such a busy advertising space or marketing space. So really think about who they are and visualize them, even if you can. The more targeted you are, the more comprehensive your business plan is going to be, as I mentioned. All right, then you've got your marketing mix. Now, your marketing mix includes those controllable factors that have been chosen by you to satisfy customer needs. Now, once you know everything that you have learned and you've really defined your customer, you have to think about those controllable factors. And there's the 4 Ps, which are your product, your price, your place, and your promotion. So really think about your strategies to appeal to these target markets. Now, there is also an extension into 7 Ps if you include people, as in your staffing, your processes, and your physical environment. So 4 Ps as a bare minimum, 7 Ps if you want to extend on that and if it's relevant to your business. But we'll just talk about the 4 Ps today, the main 4. First of all, products. Does your range complement each other? Does it suit who you've identified as your target audience? So you might need to make changes to appeal more to your target market. So you might have an existing product or service, or have a concept of a product or service that you're going to take to market. Through research, you've determined that your target market actually wants something slightly different. You'll have to go back and look at your product strategy and maybe introduce something that suits them. Adapt your product or service to suit the actual market. So your products, you interchange between your competitors, your target markets, and your marketing mix it's going to be really looking at one and then assessing the other areas and going back and forth until you get that perfect science, the perfect ingredient in each. Your price, you need to consider how your pricing suits your target market with everything that you know about them in terms of discretionary spend, what their behaviors are, what sort of price points are going to suit them. You need to also consider how your price compares to competitors. How does each price in your product range look alongside other products and services as well? So if you've got 4 products and it's very difficult for the customer to differentiate between the products, that might make it a confusing, at the checkout. Essentially, it becomes quite confusing. They don't know what to do. Sometimes customers will do nothing if the pricing is too confusing. So you've got to be really clear with your pricing and make sure your pricing as a business and all your products sit well alongside each other. You also have to know that your pricing allows for enough profit. So that's a really key thing. You have to be making profit. You can't just focus on what your competitors are doing or what the customer's willing to pay. You need to make sure that you're making enough in it. So this is where you start to look at sales volumes and cash flows and that kind of thing. Your place is really important. So your distribution, where do people actually go to look for your products or services? When you know who they are, you know how they consume media, then this place pretty much answers itself. Do they go online? Will they come to you direct to purchase, or do they go to a wholesaler or some kind of agent that they can purchase through? Think about that. Think about how you can access the right distribution channels. Now, if you do wholesale your products or services, you'll need to go back to your pricing and incorporate that into your strategy. Because in most cases, you're going to have products that you will sell direct to your customers, and then some that you will sell at a much lower rate if you sell them on a wholesale basis. So you have to look at your pricing strategy. Have you got your prices right to still allow for enough profit if you're wholesaling your products and services? Promotion is the last thing. So what's your strategy around promoting your product or service? So simply, where are you going to market it? And how are you going to get to your market if you're attracting consumers directly? Where specifically do they consume media or advertising? So what type of methods are going to actually appeal to them? You have to know your target market very, very well to be able to determine where and how you're going to promote your product or service. And that, like I said, really answers itself, so that becomes really straightforward. Now, once you've got all of that information, you can start to consider what your opportunities are. Successful businesses do think big. You might be starting small, but you don't have to stay that way. So write down all the possible opportunities for your business as it grows. For example, you might be planning to start selling over the internet, and that's great, but how are you going to get traffic to your site? How will people find you online? Do you need salespeople? If not, how will you convince people to buy from you? So thinking about all of these elements, and as your business grows, is there then scope for a bricks and mortar or a retail type outlet? Or what other opportunities will you have if your business grows as it's planned to? So really start to think, and this is where setting milestones can really help as well. So when you achieve milestones, that triggers the next part of your plan. So it's all about looking at the long term with your business planning. All right, then you've got your budgets and finance. So in this sort of section of your business plan, build a simple financial plan. All business plans should contain financial information. You will include a cash flow analysis. You'll estimate sales, and you'll have to consider a change in conditions. So in your cash flow analysis, some key factors to consider are the overall costs of setting up your business. So it could be the cost to make or to buy your products. It could be cost of labor and manufacturing, including any raw materials. There will be employee costs, especially for service businesses. You really have to factor in those employee costs. Your distribution and marketing costs are crucial as well, and making sure that you are planning those. You also have to look, in terms of your cash flow, you have to look at when the cash, obviously cash flow is all about timing. You have to look at when that cash is coming in, and therefore when you can afford to do certain things. So you will have to spend money on marketing to be able to get sales, but how are you going to get the money for marketing? So really think about those kind of things and how that flows. Think about fixed and variable overheads as well. One thing I was going to say with your budgets and finance, once you've mapped out your outflows in terms of the cash going out, I would then start to look at your sales analysis and estimating what sales you'll need. In the first instance of a startup business, the idea or the goal around your cash flow analysis is to cover expenses, and then the ultimate goal is to be profitable. So covering expenses will tell you the bare minimum sales you need to make per month, and then hopefully you can exceed those expenses to be profitable. So that then, it might take a little bit of tweaking. You might be, playing with some cash flow results by way of, if my sales look like this is what kind of profit I'd have, and then just kind of scale it back so that you're always as realistic as possible in your planning. Now, if you have accounting software, or if you're considering accounting software, a lot of the software available now will help you to create a draft financial model. So do keep that in mind. We can have a look at that in a little bit more detail and just see what is actually incorporated in your financial software. And I'm talking things like MyOb, Xero, those kind of softwares can be really straightforward. But I would talk to your accountant, talk to your bookkeeper for help and advice around some of these areas as well. Now, in terms of your cash flow and your budgets and finance, also consider a change in conditions. So what happens if conditions change? Now, this could be a condition, this could be a change in environmental conditions. If you, depending on what sort of product or service you offer, it could be a change in the market. It could be demand. It could be things like borders opening and closing, which hopefully we're past all of that now, but there's still factors that, a change in any conditions will impact your business. So start to, I guess, forecast or estimate or have a look at what potential conditions could change. What are some variables? What assumptions have you based your cash flow planning on, and your sales analysis on? So really have a look at that. So that estimate of sales has to be as accurate as possible for this all to make sense. Okay, now we're going to have a look at a template. I'm going to talk you through just one, but there are a range of templates available online to get you started. My favourite tends to be the Australian government. So it's on the business.gov.au. If you just simply hop over there and go to or Google business.gov.au business plan template, it will come up. It's downloadable in a Word document format and very, very simple. It gives you instructions as you go, which I'm going to show you through now. There are also templates available at the Small Business Development Corporation, where you can sort of work through a very similar template. Doesn't matter what template you use. Like I said right at the beginning, there's no right or wrong when it comes to business planning. It's just really that you factor in how you're answering each component and you're as comprehensive as possible in answering the various sections. Now, I am going to, as I said, show you through a template now. This one is from the Australian Government business.gov.au website. So pretty straightforward. Like I said, it's downloadable in a Word document. You can insert your specific business information in that, including your business name, pop your dates in. Now, you will see throughout this document that there is guidance to help you complete the business plan. So I would be deleting that as you go. So just remove it. And obviously, that will always have a link to the most relevant document in there. So in a template like this one starts, just as a template starts, is about 19 pages. So by the time you enter your content in it, you're probably going to end up with a 40 or 50 page document. So like I said right at the beginning, it is extensive. It is time consuming, but very, very worth it in the end. Now, whether or not you're using this for funding, for an investor, or just purely for your own peace of mind that you're putting your money and your efforts into the right business, very, very worthwhile. Okay, you start with some basic registration information, business name, your structures, ABNs, ACNs, licenses and permits. Here you may not have received licenses and permits yet, but this is a time to start to consider and reach out to various government organisations, whether they're state, national, state or regional, just to see what you might need. Contact details for the business or the business plan, your social media details. Now, these kind of things you might think, oh, why am I putting my Facebook page on a business plan? But it's really important actually for investors and funders to just get a feel for the business. So here it's a drop down. You choose the particular type and then enter the details, so the handle there. Your contents page, this will update, so you can click to any of these sections, hover over it and click. As you're going, you'll need to update this. Your page numbers will change. Some of your headings might change. So once you've done a major change or added some content to your business plan, come back here, right click on it and go update field, and then update entire table, and that will just change any of the page numbers to make them relevant. Then you get into some information around the business. So this is a bit of a plan summary. What your business does, who your target market is, your unique selling point, your business goals, your history. So again, this is very much at the summary level. And it does say here, this is the executive summary that I was talking about. Complete it last, so you can summarize information that you've pulled from your business plan. The why is why you started the business and why you personally invested in the business idea or the inspiration behind the business. So again, pop that in there. Your vision and mission, there's some tips there. So in further to what I've said, there's some more tips in there about how to define that. But that might be, this might be a half-day brainstorming session, that it takes you to go back and forth and really define those key areas. So this document, like I said, is one that you're going to keep coming back and forward to. Then it starts to get into operational information where you can list all of your products and the price that you're selling your products for, talk about the production, look at your sales and distribution channels. So start to look at that, looking at your digital technology, how you're going to collect and store information, what assets you have in the business, what stock and inventory you have in the business. Now, this is starting to get quite in depth in some of the more financial side of things, but very important for somebody that's looking into the business to get a feel for what it actually is and what it does. Equipment and IP as well. This might stimulate you to go, okay, I actually need this to be trademarked, or you need to have a look at registering some other IP. Your people, obviously list the relevant people here. Skills and experience you might just touch on, but I find the higher level personnel, you will have such extensive skills and experience that it's maybe a bit of a bullet point here of some of the key points, and then a referral over to a full CV. So that would be my suggestion. Other sources of advice and support around your business. So who else are you working with? Skill and staff retention strategies. If you've got these good people, these key people within your business, how are you going to keep them? And that's really important because a lot of businesses, particularly in the service industry, are centered around the staff member, whether or not that's a business owner or a manager. And there could be a major problem within the business should you not be able to get those staff. This is particularly a focus point at the moment when there are a lot of staffing shortages and difficulty in attracting and retaining the right staff. So whilst, in some periods of time this isn't as important, it certainly should be within your organisation, and it certainly would be to a lender or an investor in the current economic climate. The market, so you're going to talk about what problem it is that you solve for customers, what your solution is, your target market, Now, all of these sections, you're going to have to go away and research. And like I said, draw on some of those research areas, whether it's Australian Bureau of Statistics, whether it's IBIS World or individual industry reports or any other information you can draw to really define that customers do in fact have a problem, who they are, who those people are that have the problem, and that your solution is actually going to solve a problem they have. Your advertising and promotion, again, that's going to come from knowing your target market well and also knowing your budgets. Your competition, now in this section, it only allows for 3 top businesses that you're competing with. I would highly recommend that you have a document that sits away from your business plan that is a comprehensive competitor analysis. I'm talking the top 10 to 15 businesses that you're competing with. You might then just pick out your top 3 to go into your business plan, but you might hear talk about how that you identified more than 20 businesses that you're competing with. Some were seen as direct, some were indirect. These are the top 3 for these reasons. So then you've got competitor name, their strengths and weaknesses, and what you're going to do different in terms of how you're going to stand out in comparison to those competitors. Your pricing strategy is really how you set your prices for your products and services. Now, this will be around whether, like we're talking about how it compares with your competitors, how profitable you are, how much the customer's willing to pay. So you talk about all of that there. Your SWOT. Now, a SWOT analysis, again, I think this is a fantastic template. Even if you just give this section of the business plan to everyone in your business and give them a time frame. So go away and complete this. Give it back to me in a week's time and really collate all of the information that you get from this. It's fascinating to see different people's perspectives on the business and how it operates. Even, you might want to do this with friends and family if it's a new business and try and get some ideas around, what their perception of what your business concept is going to be. Then here you're turning your SWOT into action and you identify how you're going to address each weakness and threat. I would also consider how you're going to exploit the opportunities that you've listed and but you're utilizing your strengths to do so. Risk management, this should be comprehensive. Now, risks that affect your business will go beyond occupational health and safety and risks to the visiting public and that kind of thing. You need to think about human resource risk, financial risk, marketing risk, environmental risk. So really think about all areas of your business. Again, depending on the size and scope of your business, you may have a 200-page risk management plan, but you're going to pull out some of the key information for this particular document. Insurances, you'll highlight your different insurance policies. If you're a new business, you may want to use this, click on this link for the business insurance page to find out what sort of insurance you actually need. Then you'll have to go away and get quotes for it and obviously address the details in here. Succession planning is absolutely crucial. Laws that you need to comply with as well, you need to be across those. So that's very important. The next part is more about your forward planning. So this is kind of what we've spoken to up until now, has really been that behind the scenes, that research and getting everything together. Now you're going to start looking at your goals, what your overall goals are in a short term, so in the next year, and then in a longer term, in the next 3 years, and what actions you're going to take to achieve those goals, specifically noting due dates and who's responsible for achieving those goals. That then gives you KPIs that you need to achieve. So you can go back to here and make sure that you are on track to achieve your goals. Now, a lot of goals that people set, there is a section here that you can click through to how to set goals for your business. But don't just think about financial goals. Most businesses will just think about, we want to grow by 150% in 12 months or those kind of things. Start to think about employment goals, about your product range, about your customer base, around how you're selling your product, as well as those financial goals. You might want to have revenue goals as well as profit goals or expenditure goals, in terms of reducing expenditure. So really think a lot more broadly. There doesn't have to just be 3. So you've got room for 3 goals here, but if you've got more and they're more detailed, then that's absolutely fine. Have a look at that and see what you can incorporate. Finances, here you'll talk about your finances needed, how you're going to get that funding, what your current finances are. A bit of a balance sheet template is included here. Well, you should have a balance sheet, and generally speaking, you can extract that information from your accounting software, but you can import the data here or use a template that they're linking you through to. Your profit and loss, again, you can use your own accounting tools, or I will figure that out and then just drop the information in here. But you will have to have more extensive information. I like to actually put it in here, as much information as you can, rather than just a figure. How you got to that figure, why you got to that figure, really back it up with data. And then your cash flow forecast. Now, this is very simple from a cash flow forecast, and this is just looking at the cash balance and the closing balance month on month. But I would suggest that you would start with a really comprehensive cash flow template where you're inputting, I should say, all of the expenditure and then estimating sales. So definitely click through and use these cash flow templates that they've recommended. Look at all of the supporting info that's provided here, and it will really help you to determine and to really define your business plan. At the end, there's a bit of a supporting document checklist. So you do need to have a proper balance sheet forecast, forward looking, but also being a forecast, but also what you achieved in previous years, cash flow statements, your market research, so all of that info that you've worked on to come to these conclusions that are sort of going in this template, you will have to incorporate as part of this business plan by way of supporting documentation, as well as I said, CVs or staff resumes to back it up. So that is a fantastic template. It's not the only template, as I mentioned, but it is what I consider to be a very helpful template because you've got not only the links and the I guess those in that interface with supporting templates and further explanation, but it's just laid out in a very, very simple format as well. So definitely keep that in mind. As I said, this is the business.gov.au website. You can see the link to it there is just /business plan, but also look at Small Business Development Corporation. They sort of have a different version of that is equally as good. So consider that by way of a template, but find yourself a good template that works for you and go from there. All right, so that is almost it from me. Keep in mind your business plan is a roadmap for your business. It's not set in stone. I would be reviewing it at least annually and making any changes that you think are necessary. Keep getting feedback from advisors. You might have official advisors, unofficial advisors, but don't try and do it alone by way of, really working on and developing and growing your business. Reach out to people that can offer you that support. And with the help of people that perhaps have been there before or that have a little bit more information, you not only create a perfect business plan, but it'll take you where you want to go as a small business owner. I would also highly recommend hosting a planning or a strategy day with your key staff. I think that's a fantastic opportunity to get people involved so that they really do understand your business. They will be able to provide feedback that can grow and hopefully further develop your business. But it's also great for team morale, for them to feel like they've been involved in that planning process. Keep in mind, your business plan should be fairly simple. Complex and massive documents probably won't be read, but as you can tell from that template, it's going to end up a fairly comprehensive document, but only put valuable information in there. So you should be relevant and focused using that kind of template to get you on track. If you do find it a bit overwhelming, stop and take a break and then go back and edit what you've written. I would recommend that you do this regularly, break away from the business plan document, go back to it. The core of a good business plan, should be really well written and really well thought out. So it will take time. Now, someone's just asked if the recording will be sent to you from today. Absolutely. In the next couple of days, it will. And that does wrap up our session on how to write a business plan. I'll stay on and answer any other questions that you have now. So feel free to shoot anything through. If you do want any one-on-one advice, keep in mind, as part of this Commonwealth Government program, you can get access to 3 hours of face-to-face or one-on-one mentoring, which can help you with a range of things, including business planning, for just $44. And then, you can make up additional hours by way of webinars like you've joined today, workshops, and other professional development. There is some eligibility around that, so keep that in mind. You have to have an ABN registered in WA, Queensland or NT. You have to be running your business for profit and employ fewer than 20 full-time staff to access that Commonwealth Government program. So good luck with your business planning. I just have had a question come through about how much it costs to have a business plan made. I've personally never paid for a business plan, but I do know that there are people out there that have that do write them. Now, a good business plan, I would say, would be somewhere in the ballpark of $5,000 to $10,000, perhaps. That's really off the top of my head. But do keep in mind, you will have to have a lot of input in that yourself anyway. So someone will pull it together and collate it and probably ask you the right questions. But you really are going to have to pull, you're going to be the information provider. You know that your business intimately. So you're going to have that time constraint on you either way. With regards to the one-on-ones, the link is on your screen. So just go to businessstation.link/register, and that will allow you to register for the one-on-one, the mentoring package, which is $44 for 3 one-on-one sessions, plus workshops and webinars. So I hope that's helped. I will continue to stay on for a few more minutes and answer any questions. Good luck with your business planning. It is a huge investment into your business to be able to have a document like this. So I think it's just definitely well worth it, and put the time and effort in, and it will be very, very valuable for your business. Thanks a lot for joining me. Hopefully we speak again soon.